From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host, Sean Vazan, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast is Andre Johnson.
Jr.
Do not forget about the JR. Although you did one time. You
I
forgot
did,
about the JR
and the
one time, but we
comments
were
let
in
me know about
California. Everybody let them know about it. But anyway, before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, review if you are watching us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. And today is Monday, a special Monday. It's Labor Day, but also game week in the city of New Orleans. It has finally arrived. Now for the next, I don't know, however many weeks, football here in the city of New Orleans. Saints open with the Panthers on Sunday at home. And look, new season, new excitement, new worry, new concern, new optimism, pessimism. It's just new. It's fresh. And what we think we see in the preseason, we always have to relearn. That's fool's gold, because when the regular season comes, it just hits different. So, without further ado, that's where we're going with the big picture today, not just with the Saints opening the season, but with Derek Carr, starting quarterback in 2024, because obviously he's a very, very important piece to this team getting back to where they want to get to, and it's a very big year for everyone. So, well, before we get into that, how are you today? It's hot. We had to work last night and today, but how are you today?
We did. I'm doing good, feeling good. Had a very relaxing weekend. This was the last weekend that I got Friday, Saturday off. Now my schedule shifts a little bit because we got to bring you guys episodes every Friday starting this week. So, from a football perspective, a lot of good football this week. Now, our local teams, they, unless you're a Tulane Green Wave fan, the Southeastern, Nichols, and LSU all losing. So not the greatest in that sense, but, it was just good to turn the TV on a Saturday and see football all day.
God, there's something so pure about that. I don't know what it is. So that first Saturday of college football, there's something so pure about that. And then this week, obviously, the NFL season starts. So, big picture. How do you want to do this with the big picture today?
We have been talking the last two episodes about the backup quarterback, but we have to actually talk about the guy who's going to play week 1 against Carolina, the starter, Derek Carr. What are some reasonable expectations for Derek Carr and that revamped Saints offense as we head into the regular season?
All right, what do we expect from Derek Carr in 2024? It's a fair question. It is a fair question. It's an important question. He's QB1. He's the quarterback. He's the franchise quarterback. He's the guy they paid. Not Spencer Rattler, not Jake Haener, even though they've gotten a lot of the buzz this preseason. It's Derek Carr. And how is he going to do matters. It matters based off how the season is going to go. And like I said before, just a little bit of history here. Somehow, I've unintentionally become the Carr guy. I've become the guy who I guess views Carr favorably. I viewed his season last year somewhat favorably. It's not that I thought he was great last year. He absolutely was not. I just didn't expect people, fan base, those surrounding, local media, national media, to apocalyptically lose their minds over his bad games and bad decisions and see that overall it wasn't nearly as the disaster of a season for him as the chaotic nuclear reactions would have made you believe. They were not an A team. It was not they were one game away from the playoffs, and no one cares about that. We get it. They weren't 4-13, and he still had decent numbers. And no, it wasn't all just padded stats, although there was some games where he had padded stats, but he still had decent numbers, and they had a winning season with Derek Carr as your quarterback. But that was last year. Let's put all that behind us. Let's put all of that behind us. A new season is here, and a fresh start is upon us. First things first. There is little doubt. This is important to state right here because I'm already starting to hear it. I'm already starting to hear it, even from people that claim to be in the know in the national space. There is no doubt Carr is the guy. Yeah. Let's put this away. Carr is the guy. So if you hear anything about either of the backups potentially pushing Carr out of his spot, laugh at it. It is not even remotely true. Derek Carr is the starting quarterback if he is healthy for the Saints in 2024. I went back and re-ranked, since we know about all the starting quarterbacks, all 32 NFL starting quarterbacks. I went back and I re-ranked all 32. Did we do this exercise a couple of months ago? Mm-hmm. I went back and re-ranked it. I don't even remember what I put on that first one, but I had Carr right in the middle.
Yep.
At 16. I had him right at 16. Not good enough. Absolutely not good enough heading into a season. 16th is not what the Saints want. The Saints need him. He must do better. He must be better than the 16th ranked quarterback in the NFL. Probably, realistically, they need him to get where they want to go to be somewhere around number 12 in the NFL in terms of ranked quarterbacks in the NFL. The fair question is, can he get there? Because that's not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable, in my opinion, to be a 12th ranked quarterback. He'll never be a top 5 or top 6 or top 7 guy unless he really surprises us. But getting into the top 12 should not only be possible, but expected, especially when you talk about the money that the Saints are paying Derek Carr to be their franchise guy, their face of their franchise. I can undoubtedly say this about Carr as we get into game week of this season, 2024, today. He is in a much better space. I've said this a few times. Mentally and definitely physically with the beating that he took a season ago. And there was a lot more going on physically that I don't think we realized. And we saw the run-ins with teammates, and we saw just the weird vibes at times. And he's in a system that on the surface looks to both highlight his strengths as a play-action passer and, frankly, lighten some of his workload and responsibility. Only certain players can truly take on that kind of mental load week in and week out. And Carr's just not one of them. A select few, the 1%ers can do that. The Drew Breeses, the Patrick Mahomes, the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Brady's. Derek Carr is just not in that category. Doesn't mean he can't be a good quarterback. He's just not in that category. So let's pivot away from that system and get to a system that other, call it B+ quarterbacks can thrive in. Enter Clint Kubiak, enter the Saints' new offense. So this system, he can be quite effective, and hopefully he plays a little freer. He plays not as burdened. It felt last year like it was burdening him at different parts of the season, especially that middle stretch. First, earlier this season before he got hurt, I felt like he was kind of playing good headspace. End of the season, he got where he needed to be. But that middle stretch, it really felt like you were just kind of wondering, okay, is all this going to kind of come down on him at some point? But he kind of weathered the storm there. And don't forget, he had a good camp. Probably a better camp than we've talked about. But here is the reality. Nobody cares about Derek Carr's camp. All they care about is now. What does he do now from here on out in 2024? Again, that is completely reasonable. I actually think, it's a long way of saying, this is where I think he's going to go. I actually think Carr's going to be fine. I think Carr's going to be good. I think Carr's going to be solid. I think he should be solid. I think that's a reasonable expectation. I think he's going to. I don't expect him to set the world on fire. I don't expect him to be all of a sudden a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. But like I said, top 12 is certainly in the realm of possibility. And frankly, they have to get there because that's what they're paying him to do. And as we sit here on the doorsteps of another Saints season, this is where he fits into the bigger picture of the Saints 2024 team. I see a lot of maybes. Maybe this, maybe that works, maybe that doesn't. Concern here, concern there. Maybe this, maybe that works. Derek Carr would not be anywhere near the top of that list of my list of maybes. You kind of know what you're getting with Derek Carr. So I think that can be a blessing, it can be a curse, but I think you kind of know what you're getting. But here is the thing. This is also very important. There has to be an urgency to Derek Carr, not just as a veteran, but this is a huge year for him because if I'm wrong and it doesn't connect and Father Tom has caught up and he's terrible or he's bad or he just has a bad year, it wouldn't just impact him with the Saints. I think it could impact his career as a starting quarterback in the NFL if it doesn't go right this year. I think he's now pivoting to that aging veteran who now will slide into backup role. So this is a huge year for Derek Carr. So I'm very curious to see how he reacts.
It definitely is, and I agree with a lot of what you said. But from a fan's perspective and somebody who's going to be watching the team's perspective, I think the word to really keep in mind this year with Carr and the Saints offense, and you're not going to like to hear it because football fans, we want it now. We have an older team. We want to win now. But I think the term is patience. When you look at that schedule that the Saints are diving into with a new offense, Derek Carr, his second year here, first year in the system, a questionable offensive line, to say the least. Week 1, they got Carolina. Week 2, that questionable offense, with that questionable offensive line, has to take on the Dallas Cowboys and the pass rush that comes from Dallas. Week 3, you've got the Philadelphia Eagles pass rush. Week 4, you've got the revamped Atlanta Falcons defense. Then week 5 and 6, you've got Kansas City and Tampa Bay, 2 more pass rushes that you cannot sneeze at. It is very possible that after the first week or month and a half of the season, the Saints could be sitting at 1-5 or 2-4, and that offense may not look very good after that first month and a half. So what I'm saying is patience, because we know how the city can get when they feel like their quarterback is not getting them what they want out of them. We were both at that Detroit game last year when they were practically ready to boo Derek Carr out of the dome.
I'm hearing the typing right now in the comment section right now. But you preach it. I'm hearing I'm hearing the responses.
And there's going to be a whole lot more comments if we're sitting in this room having a podcast and the Saints are sitting 1-5 and Derek Carr, the offense, has been getting smacked by these tough defenses they have in this first half of the schedule. But patience. I don't think they're going to bench Derek Carr after a rough month and a half, knowing the season that they have in front of them and knowing how important Derek Carr's success is, not just to him, but also to Dennis Allen, the guy who chose Derek Carr to lead his team. And
I'm not sure he gets to pick the next guy if the Carr doesn't work out.
Exactly. And that schedule does kind of ease off after that Tampa Bay game where you go into Denver and you start having some simpler games, some defenses and pass rushes that aren't as dominant as some of those early season teams the Saints will face. So I do think Carr will have an uptick in production as we head into the middle and late in the season, but I think that they could get punched in the mouth. This is still a new system that the team's trying to get familiar with. This isn't exactly an offense full of world beaters and playmakers, and that first month and a half, it may get ugly. So, that's going to be something that...
So, let's talk about that a little bit, because it kind of popped up today because there was some questions about Carolina and Dennis Allen, and it made sense because they got a new coach. You know what system he ran in Tampa Bay, but you know how it looks with Carolina, which can be a concern because there's way more of an emphasis on in-game adjustment. It's not like you have 15 years of tape of Bryce Young with Canales, the new coach/coordinator. I don't know. I'm guessing he's calling the plays. I don't know. Couldn't that also work with the Saints?
That's true.
I mean, couldn't that also work because what we saw in the preseason, especially with the first team, wasn't anywhere near what we saw in training camp in terms of practices and what it looked like in practice versus what they actually ran in games. So, what my point is, there is a little bit of unknown that could work against the Saints, but there's also a little bit of an unknown that could work in their favor. For the same reason why the Saints and Dennis Allen, they're trying to figure out what could possibly become with Carolina and this new look. I don't think Bryce Young's going to be as bad as he was a season ago. I just don't. I think he's in a much better. I think this what this coach did with Baker Mayfield, I think, can certainly do same things with Bryce Young. But I just think ultimately that is the maybe I was talking about. Well, maybe it's not about them coming together. It's an advantage because the tape will eventually catch up to them. But maybe early on, them not seeing who does what in Kubiak's Saints version could be an advantage, or it could be this offense hasn't come together yet. They need some time to iron it out, and then you just hope the hole's not too far dug in before it's too late in the season. Because I'm with you, that could happen. And if they slip to 1-5, I think the season's over at that point. I think they've got to get to 3-3 to have a chance.
Oh, definitely. And that's going to be hard. With those first games, you've got Carolina, you got Dallas, you got Philly, Atlanta, Kansas City, and Tampa Bay. 3 of those first 6 also being games in the NFC South, which puts an elevated importance on winning them. And, just like the Saints will be figuring out a new system, and that could work in their advantage, like you said. Every team in the NFC South has a new offensive coordinator and a new play caller, and so crazy, every team's offense is going to be looking different. Tampa's play caller is now the head coach in Carolina. The guy who was calling plays in Carolina last year, he's out. Atlanta has a new coach and a new play caller and a new quarterback as well. So I think a lot of the offenses across the NFC South are going to look a little different this year, and it's going to be on the defensive coordinators and the defensive minds to try to figure that out and get that early edge, because if you're sitting 1-5 after 6 weeks, you know what it's going to be like in that dome for Carr. It is not going to be a kind environment, and it's going to get tough.
I hope they don't turn them so quickly early. Like, let's hold off on booing if they got a punt early in the game on Sunday. Like, let's not get too crazy with this, And I do feel like, it's one of those things where, like, the ones that don't like you are the most vocal. But, I've watched him interact with fans quite a bit. I think he's got some support, probably more support than maybe we think. But the boos in that Detroit game were just unavoidable. You cannot unhear that. You cannot unsee that scene. Like, that was painful. And I just hope that at the first, I don't want to say hope. I'll be very curious to see if at the first sign of trouble, Saints fans, which are on edge because they haven't made the playoffs and things have gotten stale and they want their team back. If they don't just throw their hands up in frustration and just start venting right away, how quickly does that happen? Hopefully, we don't have to see that.
When's the last time the Saints started off a season 1-5 or even 2-4? This is unfamiliar territory for a franchise that over the last 15 or so years has been pretty successful as a whole.
So they got Carolina, which I think we're viewing that as a win, but there's a little bit of a mystery with Carolina.
I will say Bryce Young, and Carolina is a team that's near and dear to my heart. I watch a lot of Carolina Panthers football, and I've been very low on Bryce Young. For what it's worth, in the preseason game 3 for the Panthers, the only one he played, he looked very good.
Yeah. So my point is, it's not going to be it's NFL. It's the NFL. I mean, and that Monday night game in week 2, it wasn't an easy win for the Saints. It was a difficult. They had the battle in that game. So still, you got that, then you have Dallas, then you have Atlanta, Philly, then Atlanta, and then is it Kansas City? Then Kansas City, and then
Tampa,
then Denver.
I think, Sean Payton comes home after that.
It's the NFL. You just never know because it's anybody telling you that they think they've got a read on the Saints offense. There's no way to know. There's no way to know. We don't have any evidence other than training camp practices and a majority of preseason plays that were played by players that are not going to be playing in the regular season games. So that's what makes it fun, though. Look, that's what makes it fun, and it's a huge year for Dennis Allen because it's sad to say, if he goes 8-9, I don't think he's getting fired. But if they dip to double-digit losses, I could see a tough decision having to be made for the Saints organization.
And that's another question mark on the season. And I know we'll talk about it tonight on Black and Gold Review. You'll talk about it again probably tomorrow on Overtime, Fox 8 Overtime here on Fox 8. Mm-hmm. Is this playoff or bust for Dennis Allen? I know that's one of the main points of tonight's show. Dennis Allen's been here, head coach for 3 years, hasn't made the playoffs yet. If he misses the playoffs for a 4th time, how...
well, this is his third year.
Third year.
This is his third year. So
my bad. Misses it for a 3rd time. How long can the organization stick with him?
Yeah, because at some point the bottom line will come into play with season ticket sales and everything else. Because I think that's there's some people on the edge when it comes to stuff like that. I know a lot of Saints season ticket holders, and I think a lot of them with one kind of half down, but not quite all the way down when it comes to Saints season tickets. So hopefully they can avoid that problem and get back on track this season. The good thing, I don't know if you call this a good thing or bad thing, but the thing is no one's expecting to do anything outside of like you talk to any NFL person, national person, anyone that covered, the perception of the Saints is not nearly that high. So, can you sneak up on some people? Can you, last year at this point, we were thinking NFC South champions.
Right.
No one's saying that right now, although I do think the division's still attainable. So Derek Carr's will be a big part of that, but Derek Carr, to me, has to up his game a little bit to where he's comfortably in that top 12 quarterbacks in the NFL. Can it happen? Can it happen? At one point in his career, I think he could have been, or I think he may have been in that range. Is he still there? We'll find out this year.
We will. And, another quarterback that Louisiana sports fans have been talking about, especially yesterday, swing it over to Baton Rouge, is Garrett Nussmeier. The Tigers going to Las Vegas to take on the USC Trojans yesterday, bringing home a loss for the 5th straight year in their season opener. It was a back-and-forth game with USC. Nussmeier throwing for over 300 yards. He had a pick at the end, last play of the game. I'm not putting too much weight on that, but overall, what was kind of your takeaway from that LSU game?
Extremely disappointed. Extremely disappointed because that was not Florida State the last 2 years where Florida State was just better and they beat you up. Like, I think LSU's better than USC. I think that you truly and utterly came down to execution discipline. Execution discipline. It wasn't on the offense. It wasn't on the defense. It wasn't on the special teams. It was execution in crucial moments. You cannot. We talked about this, the second to last drive, that third down short drive, the third and short run and play. Like, they're running to the line, snapping the ball. Felt like there was just no need for that. And then the following drive of the third down, there's all chaos before the snap. It's 0 or 2, 1. They could have called the timeout. They didn't do it. It was a chaotic play. That's execution. That's a lack of discipline. You know, what is Kyron Lacy doing? He had a great first half, but what is he doing the gun thing or whatever to the opponent? And then, you know, Major Burns, you can't take your helmet off. Like, you can't do it. I mean, you can't do it. And then Will Campbell, 2 false start penalties. Mm-hmm. Brian Kelly is supposed to be the discipline guy. That's why he was brought in, the infrastructure and the discipline. And it just, to me, that burned him. And that was 3 team leaders, Lacy, Burns, and Campbell. A couple other things, like, Garrett, if you're off the Nuss bus, like, I don't know what to tell you. Garrett Nussmeier was great yesterday. I mean, Garrett was really good. I was probably giving him an A-. You know, he didn't do the chaotic spin all around and just throw the ball up for grabs like he had done earlier in his career. He only had one 50-50 ball, and it was the touchdown to Kyron Lacy. He saw the field well. He took what was given him when, you know, Florida State was clearly playing a lot of off-man coverage. The underneath was open. He kept taking it and taking it and taking it. He made big throws. He was accurate with the football. It felt like, you know, the moment wasn't too big for him, even though the emotions were pretty high in that game. Thought he handled it pretty well. But what was Brian? I mean, look, I went back and listened to the whole press conference with Brian Kelly, so it wasn't like it was an intentional dig at Garrett Nussmeier to say he outplayed Miller Moss outplayed Garrett Nussmeier, but there was no need to even bring that up. I mean, I thought two quarterbacks that had similar stories had battled it out. You know, Nussmeier had the one bad play on that 2nd and 7 where he, you know, throws it behind Aaron Anderson, but you know, Miller Moss made some plays at the end. But it was two good stories for 2 guys with 2 unique paths back to their, you know, their starting jobs. I didn't understand Brian Kelly, and then, like, I've had it with the Harold Perkins experiment. Like, let this guy do what he does. You are taking away your most dynamic playmaker, and you put him. He's thinking now. He's not playing football now. The one play he made, what was he doing? He was at the line of scrimmage. He was getting in the backfield. He is where's the ball? Let me go get it type player. You got to let him be him. So those were a couple things that stood out about LSU's game.
Yeah, from a play style perspective, I really liked what they looked like yesterday. Garrett Nussmeier, I agree. He played really well. Nussmeier impressed me. He wasn't reckless with the ball because that's been the big concern with Nuss is, man, he can sling it, but he will sling it, you know? And yesterday he was taking calculated risk, if you call him. The defense, it looked better. Did it look like a top 10 defense? No, but they made some key plays in key moments at times yesterday. My biggest concern was really coaching, especially play calling down the stretch. It was that last possession for the LSU Tigers where they took a field goal. Nussmeier kind of rolled out to his left. He made a big throw to Aaron Anderson that got him in field goal range. We're about 2.5 minutes on the clock at that point. And at that point, it felt like the LSU Tigers went from playing to win to playing not to lose. They were okay with taking that field goal if they had to. And I get you want to control the clock. You don't want to give the ball back to USC with too much time. But they got that far by being aggressive. And when they got into field goal range, it got really conservative. They were too busy clock watching and trying not to lose the game than staying aggressive, going out there and win the game. If you take a 4-point lead and force USC to drive down the field with 2 minutes left to score a touchdown and beat you, if they do that, you dap them up after the game and say, hey, y'all did it. Y'all went down and scored. Y'all beat us. But it felt like LSU really went from wanting to win to not wanting to lose. And even on that last defensive possession where USC did drive down the field, they were playing so far back.
Yeah.
Again, just playing to kind of keep them in front, playing not to lose and not keeping that aggression, keeping the blitz going. Because Miller Moss did struggle when he had pressure in his face that game. Keeping that aggression, keeping that foot on the gas and trying to win. And that shift in the last 2-3 minutes of the game, that's coaching.
That is. And ironically, the position we were all worried about was defensive tackle. They were fine. I thought defensive tackle position was fine.
A lot of swats, a lot of pressure.
You know, and I'm hearing a lot right now about LSU's lack of a run game, and it was concerning because I thought pass blocking wise, LSU was awesome. I didn't think Nussmeier got touched, and Nussmeier was pretty good against the blitz, and except for that fourth down play, the opening drive, the center Chester, is that Chester? Yeah, he missed the A-gap blitzer there, and it forced the errant throw. But the play before, Kyron Lacy catches the ball, but his foot was out of bounds. And there's a concern about the lack of inconsistent run blocking. Couple things stood out. It's true they weren't quite as good, and they're doing some things they don't normally do. A lot of gap scheme, a lot of pulling. But don't underestimate the idea that I don't know if LSU has a game-breaking back. Like, I don't know, because there was some space there that closed pretty quick because those guys couldn't hit the hole. I like Josh Williams. I love John Emery. I mean, he's been my guy since Destrehan High School. I mean, I freaking loved him at Destrehan. Jackson looked a little heavy to me. Did he look heavy to you? He looked a little heavy to me. So that's certainly something they're going to have to be better at. And then, when you want to run out of that 12 personnel, 2 tight end package, I thought Pimpton looked out of sorts trying to block. I thought that's where they missed the kid that transferred, Mac Markway, the one that I guess he's at Nebraska now, because he was their blocking tight end. I thought that made a difference as well. But they still ran the ball well enough to win the game. It's just it really comes down to when you got evenly matched teams, situational football, complementary football, making the play in the moment. And you didn't see any self-inflicted wounds from USC.
Nope.
And you saw, the targeting penalty. Even if he makes that throw and that catch, it was the right call. It was targeting. Like, you got. I know it's a bang play and it's tough, but you got to do what you got to do to avoid that 15-yard penalty because basically the game's over at that point because now all they do is kick a field goal and they ended up scoring a touchdown.
Yeah, and USC missed what you would call a gimme field goal earlier in the game.
They got a gift.
Don't target there. If you just make the tackle, force them into kicking maybe a 40-something yard field goal. Should he hit it? Yes. But we saw him miss an easier field goal early in the game. You moving them up 15 yards, that gave USC the chance to say, well, we don't need to kick it at all.
Yeah.
Just put it in the end zone, So definitely a disappointing end to the game I think there were a lot of good things that you can take out of it, but there's a reason why Brian Kelly was literally banging on the table after the game and saying, I need to coach better because he knows that the coaching staff towards the end of that game, I don't think it was the players that failed the Tigers. I think it was coaching and situational play calling that failed the Tigers.
Yeah, inexcusable. This is year 3, and he was brought in here. He was the clear communicator. He was the, intellectual one. And, I'm quoting it because I loved both of them. But, the prior 2 head coaches were kind of, just kind of the bumbling idiots walking around and somehow won national championships. And, I never bought into that. But that was sort of the perception. And this guy is going to clean it all up. And everything's going to get organized again. They looked like a disorganized mess at times last night. I don't want to take away from the fact that there was some true improvement in a lot of areas. And I think Nuss being one of them. Because if you look at the last 5 season openers, I thought Nuss had the best quarterback play of the last 5 season openers.
Yeah.
And that includes Jaden twice. We know what Jaden did after. Now, I will say this. Kelly usually regroups pretty fast, and they get it together. So I still think they make a run. I said 10-2, but, man, it's going to be tough, 10-2 with that schedule they got coming up. But hopefully they can do that. But I have no doubt they bounce back, and they probably go on a pretty quick mini run here, at least until they play, Ole Miss in October 12th. So that should be the next big game. But tough loss for the Tigers.
Yeah, they've got Nichols in week 2. I know a lot of people I've heard saying they wish they would play a team like Nichols in week 1, like all the other big schools who kind of take a smaller school in week 1 just to kind of get their feet wet. But that is not going to happen for the Tigers anytime soon because the next 2 seasons they open up with Clemson. So,
and to those of people that say that, Virginia Tech in 07, Arizona State in 05, Oregon in 11, is that right? I think North Carolina in 2010, which it wasn't a powerhouse, but still was a major opponent. Who am I missing? There's more. 2018 Miami.
Yeah.
They played those games and won. I don't like that. We should make it easier because you're LSU. I mean, you're gonna lose one of these every now and then, but 5 straight, they should be fearing you. And right now, no one's fearing you in that season opening game. So it's a bummer, but that's just the reality of LSU. Anything else for us today?
Nope, we're good.
All right, we're good. We got a lot today, a lot covered today. It's a big week. Football season's back. We'll be back here on Wednesday and on Friday. That'll be our schedule throughout the regular season. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Put to check us out. Leave those comments. I know you got a lot to say about what we talked about today. But for now, for Andre Johnson Jr., I am Sean Fazan. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.